For more on the matter, we welcome in the most prolific passer in the history of Notre Dame football, Brady Quinn, with us now. Brady, we appreciate you taking the time. I want you to take off the analysis hat for a moment and talk to me as Brady Quinn, the alumni. When you see this news, you think what?
I mean, a lot of things. I think the first thing that comes to mind is, why? What would entice you to go to LSU, considering they very well could find themselves, depending on how things play out this Saturday, in the college football playoff playing for a national championship. And so that's the awkwardness of the current situation. And so then when you dig a little deeper and you kind of look at it, you go, okay, what wasn't done at Notre Dame that maybe Brian Kelly had asked for? Indoor facility or has recently built, but they wanted a new football facility. That hasn't been done yet. I've heard that was a frustrating part in this breakup, if you will, of Brian Kelly and the University of Notre Dame. Other resources and things that he asked for maybe weren't there, or at least not to the degree that LSU was able to provide. I mean, let's not get this twisted. LSU was desperate. They already made it very well aware. They wanted Lincoln Riley. They tried to swing for the fences with some names. Nothing really came through. And so they did their best to pay Brian Kelly, which I heard the number that BMAC threw out. I heard actually a higher number. I heard 7 years, $100 million. It was the actual what the contract value will end up being. So still a lot to be determined. I would say that, by the way, this is 99% done. There's still that 1% where there's not pen to paper yet. This has all been agreed upon in principle, but nothing has been 100% agreed to at this moment. So that's why if you saw the initial report by Pete Thamel, it was reported the way it was for a reason. They're expecting that to be the case tomorrow. Pen to paper will come soon after that. But at this point in time, there's still a 1% chance this thing could actually fall through.
Yeah, as we saw with Lincoln Riley, you're only a private jet away from getting that pen to paper. We'll see if that is the case here in the coming hours. You can put that analysis hat back on for us, Brady, because this really is a landscape-shifting event here, not just for Notre Dame football, but in the SEC. This is a coach that's won everywhere that he's gone. How do you see Brian Kelly, the coach, projecting in SEC football, recruiting that territory and having to play those teams week in and week out?
Well, he's never had a problem recruiting at Notre Dame. I mean, you look at the next two classes, they're both top five, and their freshman class was incredible this year. I mean, they're a team that right now sits as one loss, one of the top teams in the country, and a chance to play in the playoff, and in large part due to the contributions to some of those young recruits who stepped up this year in some big spots. So that's another curious reason, by the way, as to why he's choosing to leave, when you could make the case that this year they could play in the playoff and maybe the next couple of years with the young group of recruits they have. So recruiting won't be an issue. It never has been there at LSU. I mean, Ed Orgeron was one of the best recruiters in the country, and they've clearly had talent over the years. What they lacked was scheme, coaching, development, some of those things. And that's really what Brian Kelly will bring. And it's more from a CEO perspective. He does a great job of finding coordinators who really fit what the team needs and what the players need in order to be successful. So, look, the past three head coaches at LSU have all won national championships. The problem is, outside of Nick Saban, the rest aren't there. And so he's going to be expected to win and win quick. And this is a LSU team that, you can turn a roster around, especially the transfer portal nowadays, relatively quickly. But that offensive line is bare. He's leaving what could be one of the best in college football next year to go to one that needs to be completely rebuilt. And there's obviously high expectations with the price tag that he's coming to Baton Rouge with.
Yeah, it has been a factory sending talent to the next level. Brady, you've gone through every single step of this in your football career, from people sitting in your living room pitching you to come play for their programs, to playing on Saturdays and playing on Sundays. When you look at what the Irish have out in front of them now, recruits that have been sat down and told one thing, now they're led to believe another with Brian Kelly leaving South Bend. What are the effects short-term here for the Irish program?
It's funny. I heard Brian talking earlier about potentially losing some guys and all that. Here's the reality is, the type of player who goes to Notre Dame isn't the type of guy that goes to Florida State. It's two very different types of players and people. Those guys are largely going there in part for the head coach and the football program, but also for the academics, the school, everything else. It's a very unique place. And that's why I don't think you'll see necessarily a mass exodus. I think when you look at, some of the people who are responsible, too, for the way they've recruited, you're looking at Marcus Freeman, their defensive coordinator, Mike Elston, who's taken over, Brian Polian, who's, special teams coach, assistant head coach, who's been a former head coach. Those guys are really the ones that are heavily involved in the recruiting of a lot of the players. And so that's why, they're never pitching it on Brian Kelly. He's 60 years old. LSU might want to invest into him for that long, but I don't know that he wanted to stay that much longer at Notre Dame. So eventually they're going to have to make this transition anyways. And so your pitch is never, hey, this guy's going to be here for the next 10 years. It's help us come win a national championship next year and come to a university and school where you can get a top-notch degree on top of a chance of playing for a national championship. There's seldom places that can actually tell you that. So, I know there's speculation, and we think this is like, for example, Oklahoma. This ain't Oklahoma. It's a different school. It's a unique university. Guys are coming there for more than just football.
You make a great point, and having experienced it firsthand, that point is well received, Brady. Before we let you go, if I'm on the board of trustees, I'm getting on the phone and I'm calling Brady Quinn and asking him, who's our next head coach? Give me a few of those names.
Luke Fickell and Matt Campbell will be at the top of the list. Luke Fickell makes a lot of sense. The problem is they'll be playing in the college football playoff right now. And so how does this whole thing orchestrate itself out? I mean, in reality, who knows where Cincinnati will be come Tuesday night. And let's say things work out where Michigan gets upset by Iowa, and you've got Cincinnati who beats Houston, so they're in the playoff. Maybe they move up a spot, and somehow, some way, Notre Dame moves up from wherever they're at, 5, 6, and they move up into that 3 spot. I mean, you could legitimately have a scenario where, Cincinnati and Notre Dame are playing off in a college football playoff if chaos happens this weekend. And you could be looking at the guys that they're trying to get as their next head coach. I mean, there's just so much awkwardness to it. There's obviously a lot that still needs to be done. Marcus Freeman's a guy they feel really strongly about. Brian Poyen's got former head coaching experience. He coaches special teams, so he might be a guy to think about as an interim because of his experience, because he touches both sides of the ball in all 3 phases. Tommy Reese is a former player. Their OC's done a hell of a job there. They've got plenty of candidates that they have in-house, as well as, the couple I mentioned. The timing of all this is what makes it really interesting as far as how it's going to work out in regards to this year's team and what Brian Kelly's going to do if they have a chance to play for the playoff. My guess is this. I think even if there was chaos this weekend, I think the College Football Playoff Committee might bail them out and keep them at 5. And even where Baylor beats Oklahoma State, Iowa beats Michigan, Cincinnati loses to Houston, they find some way of leaving them out purely on the basis that maybe they don't even want to see what that's going to look like or who the hell is going to coach if that was to come to fruition.
Which is a further knock on the timing of it all. That would be a conversation that could be had if we do see them at 5 in the final college football playoff ranking. He is Brady Quinn, CBS Sports football analyst and Notre Dame great, always waking up the echoes on HQ. Thank you, Brady.
Thanks for having me.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.